Hello, how are you, Lucy?
Fine. And you?
I'm fine, thank you. I should have your literature review graded today, later today. Look in Canvas under grades,
Okay.
literature review, and you should see an attachment. I'm going to send you a Word document with my feedback. So check that a little bit later today. The way that I'm grading all of the literature reviews, basically all the individual products, is I'm giving a grade for the individual product with the expectation that you're going to make changes based on my feedback. And when I get the final draft, that is the first draft on May 23rd, I'm going to look and see that you made those changes. And if you made those changes, that will improve your grade. So whatever grade that you get for the individual products, I will go back and modify those based on the first draft on May 23rd. Now the first draft for me is basically the last draft because that's the last time I'm going to give you feedback. On May 23rd, I'm going to give you feedback for your first draft, and then that same copy is going to be forwarded to the other tutors. Whenever you give your mock presentation, they're going to also look at your written document and give you feedback. So the idea is that you have the best first draft, right? So if you do have any changes, they'll be just minimal changes because you won't have a lot of time from May 23rd to make the final changes that you end up then giving the examiners as your final draft. Okay, so the idea is that we do, we clean everything up so that on May 23rd you have a good first draft, and so you don't have, you don't get bogged down by all the changes at the last minute. Okay, so don't stress about the grade if you're not happy with the grade. Just know that we still have time to make changes. Obviously, if you have questions about my feedback, we can still discuss those in our tutoring sessions, or you can send me emails in Canvas. So it's, well, that's I think how we'll work for each of the individual products for the literature. Now, today, week 6, we're beginning our design of our instruments, and we have 4 weeks. So we need to look closely again at our research questions because we need to design instruments that allow us to answer our research questions. So let's take a look at our research questions. So what types of questions do teachers ask with more frequency? How do teachers present questions within a verbal exchange? How do teachers make questions for their students? All right. Now, do you have an idea about the teachers that you, or where you want to do your research, or with which teachers?
Yeah, more or less.
And where would that be?
In my job. Yeah.
All right.
And also to Diego here, the classmates who work in a similar school, Diego and Luz Maria.
Okay. So how many teachers are you considering?
I don't know, 4?
Well, based on your research questions, you're going to have to do a discourse analysis. So that's going to require transcribing. It could be quite a lot. It depends on how many questions, right? If a teacher doesn't ask any questions, well, then there's not much to transcribe.
No.
But if the teacher's like question, I mean, potentially, there could be a lot of work here. So I would recommend 1 or 2 teachers.
1, it's okay.
Now, if you do 1 teacher, there's also a risk involved in doing 1 teacher because you are totally dependent on that 1 teacher. If the teacher or the school, if the school has, a holiday or they don't have class one day or whatever, there's a risk involved there. So you need to choose a teacher or teachers. I would choose 1 to 2, but that you are fairly certain that they are going to be dependable, accessible, that they're willing to work with you and doing the research. So just keep in mind that. If you're talking about two teachers and it's more convenient to do two teachers from the same school, well then do that.
Okay.
Right? Instead of doing one teacher from two different schools.
Okay.
I would recommend, I think, two teachers. Just in case one teacher just you have problems, and if they both turn out fine, then you can do kind of a comparison between the two.
Okay.
Now, the instruments that you use. What instruments here? What do you think? We're gonna have.
Questionnaires.
Do we need questionnaires? Questionnaires for who?
The teachers.
Alright, so let's copy and paste our questions here. Alright. Now, if you only have two teachers, I don't think we'll need a questionnaire. You may want to do an interview because you have one question here. Why do teachers make questions to their students? Now, you probably want. You're going to be asking various types of questions that relate to that one question. So you may ask questions like, well, I noticed that you started with easy questions and then hard questions, or yes/no questions and content questions. Why did you do that? Right. So think of in the interview, you're going to have to come up with an interview guide. So you need to create some sort of guide that you can take with you when you interview the teacher to help prompt you, to remind yourself, to make sure that you're asking the questions that you need for your research. Okay, so for next week, I think one thing is we need to look at your interview guide. So the interview guide is, since it's going to be a semi-structured interview, you're not going to have a list of 20 questions and you're going, number one, question, number two. No, it's going to be more conversational. And try when you interview the teacher to discuss things that you observed in the class. Right? So this is going to require that you observe, do kind of a quick analysis about how the teacher is doing it, and then prepare yourself for asking questions based on what you analyzed, what you saw in class. Okay? So let's plan on an interview guide. What else? An observation sheet, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the observation sheet because you're doing a discourse analysis, I'm not sure an observation sheet is. You're going to need to record everything, okay? You're going to need to record everything because you need to record what the teacher says, what the students say.
It has to be like video or audio.
Well, at least the audio, okay? The video, is there a benefit? Probably not. I think audio, as long as it's good audio.
Okay.
Now, there are two scenarios that you could observe here with your teachers. It could be basically the teacher in whole group discussion, or a teacher in small group. Now, the small group could be groups of 3 or 4, could be groups of 2, it even could be individual work.
Okay.
So you're only going, I think you need to limit your analysis to a whole group, teacher and whole group. I think we talked about this before, right?
Teacher in a whole group?
I think so, because I'm thinking about how you're going to analyze, thinking about, let's say they're working in small groups and one teacher goes over here, do you hear the teacher, and then the teacher goes over here, and then the teacher goes over here, and so I think you should focus on only one teacher to the whole group discourse.
Okay.
That type of discourse. One teacher to the whole group. Because that will also, you're more likely to be able to capture that information. Okay. I'm just thinking about if you need to actually be there or not to observe. I mean, you probably need to be there to make sure that you think that the audio is positioned in a way that you can hear.
Yeah.
So, you probably need to be there. So if they, for some reason, move, maybe that you decide right in the middle of the class that you need to move the audio in a different place or whatever, or that it's still working, you're checking and it's working. But I don't think you need to actually observe, because you're going to be doing a discourse analysis. It's all about what the teacher says, right? And it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to listen and say, oh, there's a question, oh, there's a question, oh, there's a question. I mean, it would be, I think, difficult. But I think you should be there making sure that the equipment is working, and take notes the best you can. But I think the main thing is relying on the audio. Okay, so again, just make sure that the audio is good. And let's say we focus on 2 teachers, we need to figure out how many classes.
Not only one?
No, we need probably several classes. I think we need, I think we should wait and see how each class goes. Let's say I would observe, if we have 2 teachers, at least 3 classes for each teacher. If it turns out after 2 classes you have tons of information, then we'll just stop with 2. Okay, so let's plan on 2 teachers, 3 observations, but contingent on how much information. Because maybe you observe one day and it's just a little. It's all going to be dependent on how much information you collect, how many times the teacher's asking questions. So if they hardly ever ask questions, then maybe you need one more day. Right? But I don't want to bombard you with tons of information to analyze that you can't complete either. So there's going to be a balance there, and we'll work, and we can talk about it each week. You can let me know how things are going and the information that you have. But you'll need to be analyzing as you go along. So that means after the first class that you observe, you need to go back and listen. And that way too, when you're in the class, kind of note, maybe you can come up with a system, maybe yes, no questions, content questions, maybe some sort of key that you can just say, okay, how many times? There's one, there's one, there's one, and you're just marking.
That's for the observation?
That could be an observation. And that might be kind of a good way for you to see how many or how often the questions are happening. So after you finish one class, you can say, I have a lot of information today. Or at the end of one class, you can say, oh, they only asked 3 questions, the whole class. So let's do that. Let's plan on an observation sheet where you come up with some sort of a classification code that you can just mark.
Okay.
And you listen, you mark, listen and mark. When you hear a question, what type is it? And don't have too many. I would have like 4 or 5 types. Don't worry about essential questions. Just think about like yes, no questions and maybe content questions.
Let me write that.
And maybe the content questions, you could write down why, how, where, when, all the question words. And when you hear it, just a little mark. And you just do kind of a marking system. And then you could compare that to your audio. Yeah. And then that way, I think that'll help you see if 2 days is enough or 3 days is enough. If you say, look, I have tons of questions here that led to other questions, that should work. See? So, observation sheet.
Next week, right?
Next week, observation sheet, interview guide. You're going to have recordings, which is another data source. Okay, so those are 3 types of data sources.
Should I start recording or not yet?
For the classes?
For
Well,
the next week? should I?
I know we've got 4 weeks for our design.
Okay.
So the idea is that we design first.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we collect data. We're going to have about 4 weeks of collecting data. So we have like 4 weeks of design.
Okay.
In fact, 3 or 4 weeks for the data collection.
Okay.
Now, if it turns out that you finish, I'm going to go at your pace. If you finish in 2 weeks and you have your instruments completed, you can go ahead and start your data collection, and then you have more time to collect.
Yeah.
And that's what, 4 weeks I think is plenty of time. So if you can finish beforehand, it's better. It's better to have too much time for the data collection than not enough.
Yeah.
And after, the data collection is going to take us right up to la Semana Santa, and then 2 semanas de vacaciones. So es clave que ya terminamos con todo, que tienes toda la información antes de vacaciones. So if we have 1 extra week that you can start a week earlier, and you finish a week earlier, great. Or maybe you need 1 more week, whatever. So with this, I don't think we're going to need 4 weeks to design these. So if you bring in what you have next week,
okay.
I'll give you feedback, we'll talk about it, maybe another week to clean it up. If we need to look at it one more time, we'll look at it one more time, and that's 2 weeks.
Okay.
Begin. Now, did you tell me where you're planning, what school you're planning to do your analysis?
Yeah, in my job.
In your job, okay.
Yeah.
And do you need written permission to do your research?
No.
No?
No.
You're like the
I am the boss. Yeah.
Tiene que hacer lo que.
Of course.
Muy bien. Okay, so as long as you don't need permission, because some students will need permission, and that takes time. So.
Yeah, that one.
No problem.
I do what I want.
Perfect. So I think with these 3, we're triangulating the information, and I think we have 3 different data sources. I don't think we need an questionnaire to do this. But your particular study, what's going to be most time consuming is the analysis of the language going back and forth. Right? So I want to leave you time with that. The data collection is going to be fairly easy. It's just a matter of finding teachers who are asking questions. And if it turns out after 1 class that the teacher, let's say, doesn't hardly ask any questions, maybe talk to the teacher, say, was this a normal class, and was this like your normal type of class? Because it may turn out that you need to observe somebody else, maybe.
Okay, and if they ask a lot of questions within a normal class.
Right, then we need to look at it and see how many questions, and more or less how much data that you have.
Okay.
And I think you need to observe at least 2 classes.
2 classes, yeah.
I'm just thinking if you get tons of information, well, at least 2, and then we'll discuss it and see, how long does it take you to analyze this, and what's the best way to analyze it. Okay, so we're not going to be able to define exactly how many days, because it's just going to depend on what information you get. But we can talk about that each week, or even in the middle of the week after 1 day you observe. If you want to talk about it and show me what you have, we can talk about it, so we can see if you need another day, or if you have enough information to analyze.
Okay.
But I think it needs to be at least 1 full class. That is a warm-up, through the warm-up to the closing, and then we can, and so I think anywhere between 2 to 3 days, right? If after 2 days there are hardly any questions, just choose another teacher, or
Yeah.
But I really think, well, we'll see. I think most teachers
No,
are.
and it's because I told you that there's focus on conversation. Those are like conversation.
Okay, so they have
something
surely
like that.
they're asking.
So yeah, they all the time is like that. They are asking like
Okay.
what I asked you the other
Yeah.
day about the first sight love.
Okay, right, exactly. So I think that's
Or about
love at first sight, really. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like
Yeah. There's something else I wanted to ask you.
No, I didn't go to drink beers.
Not yet, right? That was the question I was going to ask you. No. Bueno. So yeah, I think we're in good shape here. Okay. Do you have any questions, doubts, concerns?
No, it's about the lead review.
Okay.
So you are going to send me.
Today I'm going to send you in Canvas, but you have to go into grades. It won't be in the email.
Okay.
So when you go into Canvas, go into the class, Thesis Seminar, and on the left-hand side it says grades, and then click Literature Review.
Okay.
And then on the right-hand side, it's going to say no submission, because you didn't submit anything. But on the right, you're going to have a message from me, and it's like a little email. Okay. It's going to be a message and then like a link where you can download the document. It's going to be a Word document. And open up the document, look at my comments, then go to your Google Drive and make the appropriate changes. Okay, so I'm going to include the grade in Canvas. There's a rubric that the senior dialists are going to use. I'm going to fill out the rubric on which, so that you kind of have an idea about which area that you need to focus more on, and start making the changes. So this.
Have you checked it?
I haven't checked it yet.
No.
I'm going to check it today. Right. In fact, as soon as I finish with my tutoring.
About the messiness.
Okay. I haven't checked it, but I'll check it. And I'm checking everything. Okay. So don't be concerned about the number of comments. Don't be concerned about the grade, as long as you understand that you can make the changes and you can improve your grades. Okay. And that's what I'm expecting. That I want to evaluate it the way that the senior dialists would evaluate it if it were the finished product. Even though we still have plenty of time to make changes. Yeah, so don't freak out.
Hold your horse.
Yeah, don't freak out about the grade or anything, because everything is subject to change. If you make the changes, you'll be in good shape.
Okay.
Alrighty? So,
that's about the Thesis Seminar, but I have another question.
Alrighty.
Del servicio social.
Okay.
Es que creo que me faltan 150 horas.
Okay.
Porque cuando le traje los de unas que fueron como de recién que